Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tatum Tummins, Senior Product Manager at Kion. If you're not familiar with Kion, we're a FinOps and CloudOps enablement tool focusing on automation and governance. Prior to coming over to the vendor side of the space, I spent over 7.5 years at a large healthcare company doing FinOps. I like to say I grew up in the industry in a lot of ways. And I like to share that because I'm passionate about the subject. I'm passionate about helping people get better in their practice. And that's ultimately why I'm here today, to talk about FinOps Plus, an effort that I think will help organizations be more successful. So when we look at what we're going to do today, we're going to start with a quick level set of what has the FinOps industry looked like over the last year. That will lead us into the 30,000-foot macro view of what FinOps Plus is. And then I'll spend a few slides getting into more of the details of what that looks like in action, some examples, and then we'll end with some next steps and takeaways. But to start, it's important we reflect on what the last year has looked like in the industry. And for those of you that are familiar with the FinOps Foundation, every year they do a State of the FinOps survey where they ask folks like you all, what are your challenges, what are your priorities, et cetera. And in that survey, at the beginning of this year, folks came back and said, hey, we got 3 main priorities right now. It's reducing waste and optimizing spend, it's allocation of that cloud spend, and trying to get a little bit better at forecasting. But what I found really interesting is when folks were asked, well, what are you going to care about over the next 12 months? 2 new things enter. The first is FinOps governance and policy at scale, and the third was managing costs beyond public cloud. Those 2 things, along with 3 developments, those 3 developments, the first being the introduction of scopes. So the FinOps Foundation introduced this topic, which is essentially outlining the different areas of your technology investment that you can and should practice FinOps on. The second is the common billing schema of focus. The 1.2 was released, and what we're seeing is that practitioners and vendors alike are starting to adopt that schema, or at least start to explore what that would look like. And the last piece, and this should be obvious if you've walked around anywhere this week, AI is everywhere, and the FinOps industry is no different. So when I looked at that survey data, and then I started to have conversations with prospects and customers, I was starting to package, what are the areas that folks can start to focus on of where FinOps is headed. And earlier this year, I met a gentleman, he's actually sitting right back there, Matt Coffrin from Insulet, and we met Matt, and Matt came to us and said, hey, Insulet's looking for really 2 things. We want to get better visibility into all of our technology spend. We have all of these SaaS tools that we want to start bringing in to have a single pane of glass. And Matt also said, hey, we need to bring more governance and more policy to our FinOps practice. And so I thought about the survey data, and I thought about what Matt was saying, and I started to put this together. And what Matt ultimately said, and you can scan that QR code for a full case study, is he said we didn't just need FinOps, we needed FinOps Plus. And so like any good product manager, I steal good ideas when I see them, and I decided to call this framework FinOps Plus. And ultimately, it's 3 pillars. It's automated governance, it's AI-driven, and it's beyond public cloud. And in a few slides, we'll show some examples of what these look like in practice, but I want to stay high level for a moment and talk about what FinOps Plus is and is not. So it's a modern approach, and it's really focused on doing 3 things: solving challenges a little bit more proactively, driving efficiency, and enabling smarter decisions. And what it's really trying to do is take the things that you all are doing today, the same challenges and processes, and it's trying to make those more successful right now, but what it's really trying to do is set you all up for success for where FinOps is going over the next 12 to 18 months as it evolves. When we think about what it's not, it is by no means trying to redefine FinOps. These 3 pillars are meant to apply to the same processes that you're doing today. It's also not trying to add more work to your plate. If anything, it's trying to do the opposite by leaning on automation, leaning on AI in strategic ways. It starts to give you more time back in your day. And then lastly, it's not just for certain maturity levels. There's going to be some things on the next few slides that for some of you may seem too mature or too far-fetched, but I promise, and I'm confident, that there's going to be something within at least one of these pillars that you can start to apply to your practice leaving today. And so with that, let's talk about what these pillars look like in action. And so the first we're going to talk about is automated governance. And I like to start by defining that with 3 steps. The first is policy. Policy becomes automation, and automation becomes guardrails. And when I talk about what policy means, I'll throw some examples up that probably apply to all of you. Policy looks like how you want to define waste or what an orphaned resource looks at your organization. It looks like what is your retention policy for snapshots or storage. It can be what your lights off policy looks like for your sandbox and dev environments. What time do you shut those off? Are they off on the weekends? Things of that nature. And lastly, another simple example is tagging your resources. Tagging is something every FinOps practice does. It looks a little different everywhere, but the ability to say, these are the key value pairs we look for, and then taking that policy and using, whether it's a homegrown solution or a tool like Kion, and wrapping that up in automation. When that happens, you start to have guardrails, and those guardrails produce outcomes. The first looks like preventing waste. A simple example is waste is going to exist at every organization, but the time it takes for a human to intervene, review those opportunities, and then take action 30, 60 days later, you've had waste during that time period. So the more that you can cut that off at the very beginning, you reduce that waste, and you also start to reduce manual work. Because every time a human has to go review an opportunity and then decide if they can take action, that also takes away human time and the value that they could be providing your organization. And the last piece is really important. It allows you to scale. So as you scale in the cloud, it gets more and more difficult to keep up with all of these manual opportunities to remediate. So by defining policy, putting automation in place, you now start to have a scalable process that as you grow, you can still maintain and try to increase value. The second pillar, AI-driven, and this is a fun topic, and I'm sure you guys are sick of AI already this week, even on the first day. There's a lot that we could get into here today, and there are some use cases in FinOps that the AI we have today may not be the perfect solution for, but what I am confident is that in 3 areas, it's providing real exciting value for folks. And those are guidance, efficiency, and governance. And so what I mean by guidance to start, what you see on the screen here is Kion's version of an in-app AI assistant. And what I want to draw your attention to is those are prompts on the screen. And why I think that's so critically important is that the cloud is complex, FinOps can be complex, and when you're starting out and you just don't know where to go, or maybe you're just a stakeholder and you're in procurement or you're in finance or accounting, and you need to find the data that you're looking for, AI provides you a more usable way to find that information. And then what's exciting is you click on one of these prompts, and it starts to provide you additional questions that you should be asking yourself, or highlighting things for next steps. And I think the usability piece of AI is going to go a long way in making FinOps a little bit more of a cultural activity at your organizations, and not just something that 1 or 2 folks know what they're doing. The second piece, and this is probably the most obvious one, we've all experienced this probably personal and professionally. I use ChatGPT for cooking recipes and proofreading emails, and we've probably all had somewhat of an experience like that. But it's not just the getting the information a little bit quicker that I want to highlight here, it's also getting tasks done a little bit faster. A great example is we had an organization who, when they go to update their budgets on a monthly cycle, that process used to take them about 45 minutes to an hour. Now, using AI, that process takes them less than 5 minutes because they have it go out, scan where they have overruns, where they need to adjust their forecast, and in a single prompt actually has the tool go drive an update to that budget automatically instead of doing that over 50, 100 different projects and cost centers. And so there's a lot there. If you're interested in more use cases specifically on efficiency, love to talk after this. But the next one is governance, and this is where I'm most excited about. Because what I mean here is not governing your AI spend. That is a piece of FinOps, but that is not what this is. This is actually using AI to govern your cloud. And so what you see on the screen over here is I asked if it could create a EBS policy to help clean up my unattached volumes. And what you see happening is that in this particular use case, it's writing this policy in Cloud Custodian language, for those of you that are familiar with Cloud Custodian. And what it's done is, without any extra detail for me, it's looking at any unattached volumes for over 7 days. It's going to take a snapshot of those, and then it's going to delete those EBS volumes. And in one prompt, I now can use a tool to go orchestrate that policy and begin cleaning up EBS volumes. And that's just one example, but when you think about what I was talking about prior with automated governance, AI and automated governance almost play off each other. And there's a lot of power in this because non-technical users who know what they want to achieve but don't know how to write those policies or even where to begin can now start to lean in on AI to do that for them. If you saw the keynote this morning, AWS announced, I'm going to blank on the name here, but they announced an actual policy creator for their AI agents and trying to actually prevent and provide guardrails for that. And what they showed is the same concept of asking AI to make a prompt to govern your AI spend. And we've seen a lot of great success here, and I'm really excited for where kind of this part of AI and FinOps is going. Then the third pillar, beyond public cloud. And so I talked about it a little bit under the key developments, but FinOps is expanding to all technology spend, not just your public cloud. And so it's the idea of the same processes and the same practices that you're doing, but applying them across your SaaS tool providers, your data center spend, your licensing spend, or even your Gen AI spend. And why that's important is because once you get that initial visibility, you now have this single pane of glass where you're not only looking at your cloud spend, you're looking at your MongoDB spend, your Databricks spend, all in one dashboard. And when you have that visibility, now you can start to govern that spend. You can start to optimize that spend. And the last one's critically important. You now make better business decisions because you're not looking at the cost of what a product or an application costs just in the cloud. You're looking at what that costs holistically, so you have a total cost of ownership. You start to make better decisions on what my app's profitability is, and et cetera. And so to summarize what FinOps Plus is, it's trying to drive better outcomes. And what it's trying to do is, it's taking those activities that you're already doing today, your reporting, your budgeting, your optimization, and it's doing those through these three pillars. It's applying automated governance to try to prevent waste before it exists. It's using AI in strategic areas to drive efficiency, help you govern your cloud. And it's using beyond public cloud to make better decisions, understand your total tech investment. And what it's ultimately trying to do is take that traditional FinOps and bridge it with operational excellence as you scale and grow in the cloud. So for next steps, the first is adopt FinOps Plus, and that's vague on purpose because it's going to mean something different to every single one of you here today. If you want to talk more about your use cases or what you found interesting, I'll be over here to the side, would love to chat more. I'll be at the Kion booth the rest of the week. But my hope is whether it's a SaaS tool that you want to bring into your dashboard, or it's an idea for a policy that you really think would save a lot of money if you could just figure out a way to automate it. Whatever it may be, identify a next step, and I encourage you when you leave here today to take action and try to implement that at your organization. The next, and I sincerely mean this, provide feedback to me. So this is practitioner, customer-driven content. This is not from my brain, it's from the brain of people like Matt back there, and it gets better and more applicable to you all when I hear your use cases. And if those of you have any sort of disagreement with something I shared today, all of that's valuable in refining this content and making it more usable and accessible to everyone. And then lastly, if you found something here interesting and you want to really do a deep dive on any of those use cases, Kion's booth is just right over here, 1555. Would love to talk about this more, show you how it can impact your organization, or talk through use cases that are specific to you. And so with that, I know you guys could be anywhere this afternoon. You might be headed to a happy hour, whatever it may be. I genuinely appreciate you giving me 15 minutes hearing this content. Myself, and then I think Matt, you're going to come over there too if anybody want to ask questions and have further conversations. But I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your reInvent.